What if across the world there were places similar to Area 51? And if so, why do these bases exist? What is their connection to the UFO phenomena? And why the secrecy surrounding them? Time to uncover the evidence here on Things Visible and Invisible. Mack, the last time we spoke, you gave a very interesting exposition on these various secret bases, mainly in the United States, that Area 51 is not alone. But let's backtrack a little bit as to how these bases evolved. I'm assuming that top secret military bases is not something new. I'm imagining that certainly during the Second World War, when aerial fighting, for example, became the norm, that these kind of things were pretty normal.
Right. Especially, after World War I, there were some instances of sabotage and espionage on American soil during World War I. So after that, when they knew like the enemy could come here, they started making a lot of things secret bases, factories that were working on, war material for the war they knew was coming. Those were secret. Where they built the atom bomb, the Manhattan Project is probably the most secret, accomplishment in history. I mean, there was like 30,000 people working at a factory there. And once again, no one spoke. I don't think that could happen these days. And then what happens too is that as the Cold War kind of escalated and the technology of what both sides were able to get and both sides were kind of reaching for, it just mandated that, you had to start, slapping top secret on everything. Satellites, now when you have spy satellites, so you got to make sure that you cover all this stuff up or put it someplace where you don't think the satellite is going to find you. I think it just kind of rose, exponentially with the technology after World War II, the nuclear technology, especially, and the Cold War really heating up and really never not heating, never really cooling down, really. And everyone wants to have their secrets, There's some cachet to having secrets.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's you bring those three things in and everyone wants to be at the party.
Talking of the beginning of the Cold War, some people have dated the whole UFO phenomena from roughly 1947, the events at Roswell. Certainly that's when it entered into the public consciousness. Do you see links between the emergence of secret bases and what was happening at Roswell in 1947?
Well, yes. And the interesting thing about Roswell, and I'll just say full disclosure, I don't really think anything happened otherworldly at Roswell. There's a lot of evidence in the debris that was recovered there that what this was a observation balloon. You should say it was a balloon that the CIA were lofting up into the higher atmosphere to blow across the Soviet Union at the time, and they had acoustic instruments on there to see if they could detect any signatures that the Russians had nuclear weapons. And these were just large balloons, and they would put together, not do it yourself, but they were definitely put together with just common items like rope and balsa wood and things like that. And in fact, the people put them together. General Mills, I don't know if you know about them in the UK, but they make Cheerios. They're a very big cereal company. Well, for some reason back then, they were in charge of launching these spy balloons. I don't know why. But when they would build them, they would go to this local florist in this town nearby there and get the balsa wood that he had left over from his window displays. And a lot of it had these little kind of messages on it for shipping and so on and so forth. Well, when they found those at Roswell, they thought they were hieroglyphics from outer space and so on. So again, I don't believe anything otherworldly happened there. I think it was just kind of a publicity stunt that in the 80s, people kind of brought it back and now it's turned into what it is. However, what people don't know, maybe, is that at Roswell, that was the only bomb bombing wing that had nuclear weapons at the time in 1947. I think it was the 506 bombardment wing. And that place was very, very secret because that was the only place at the time, military base at the time, that had nuclear weapons in the late 40s. Also, if you go about, it's a wide open space out there that they call Roswell, but if you go about 40 miles away from the town of Roswell, there is a ICBM base there that was built in the late mid 50s, I believe. ICBMs are, the missiles that carry nuclear warheads that both sides have. Well, we all know what ICBMs are. So, but when they were building this place, so many UFOs showed up over it that the guards, the sentries, refused to go on night duty. They would scramble airplanes to go and kind of chase these things away. They'd chase them away. The planes would leave. The UFOs would come back. There were people there who wrote to their senators and to people in the Pentagon saying there's something really strange going on here. They never really did anything about it. They just built the ICBM base, and a lot of times those places are isolated anyway. So it was just like a hole in the ground with a rock in it. But I think it's just funny that when people think of the top secrecy at Roswell, they're looking at they're looking at the wrong place. It's a very secret area down there, but because of the airbase, because of the ICBM site down there, and for this place to be the place to find a flying saucer, it just seems, I don't want to say convenient, but it's a hell of an irony, let's say.
But also, I mean that's fascinating what you're saying there, Mack, and to have that local knowledge adds a whole layer to the Roswell legend or myth or whatever we want to call it these days. But answer me this: how do you then explain the Air Force's reaction or the military establishment's reaction to the events of Roswell? Because we have this kind of push and pull in the media. What do you think was going on there from your researches?
Well, only a few weeks before Roswell, Kenneth Arnold saw what we term the first flying saucers. He was a businessman flying over Washington State. He saw these kind of disc-shaped objects coming towards him at high speed, doing impossible maneuvers. And he landed, next place he landed, the press was there, and he said they looked like saucers skipping over a pond. The media then turned that into flying saucers. That was a big headline. And back then, we really just had newspapers and radio. We didn't have TV. All of a sudden, in those 2 weeks, there were literally thousands of UFO sightings across the country. Now it was new to a lot of people. Some people saw UFOs during World War II. They were called Foo Fighters then, but now we had a term for it. So we're in the midst of this kind of UFO flying saucer craze, and then the Roswell thing happens. And the base commander said, he literally said something, we finally got one. We're flying disc. We finally got one. I believe that you don't see this very often, but I believe that they put out that story just to deflect away from what they were really doing, which was sending these balloons over the Soviet Union looking for evidence that they had the atom bomb, and they were still our allies at the time, So, and I think it just went wrong. I think it just went wrong, and then they came out and they denied it, and they just thought everyone would, believe the denial, which a lot of people do, and a lot of people did, because frankly, I grew up reading every flying saucer UFO book I could get. And there was not very little mention of Roswell until the 80s, where someone was able to get a story in the National Enquirer about what happened there. And it took off. And like I say, now from there, it's become what it is today, which is basically a circus down there. I mean, people go there, they say it's cool, but it's like just UFO everything. And all kinds of crazy stories. The government killed 50 people to shut them up, and they really 36 UFOs crashed there. A lot of it is just nonsense, But it was the first time flying saucers really got into our psyche, and we still haven't been able to let it go.
But do you see something in that, Mack? Both your researches predating Roswell and also your researches post-Roswell, that there's a kind of template of what happens next with, and maybe for the reasons that you're identifying, that it's a wonderful cover for other top secret military activity, if we spray the media with UFOs, as I say, people are looking that way when the government are doing something in the other way. Do you think Roswell set the template for what we understand for this phenomena?
Yes, I do. I mean, it came to set the template, when it kind of burst back out on the scene. Of course, now you're in the 80s, and things are different in the 80s. The United States is definitely the number one power. Reagan is the president. He's spending money on everything up to Star Wars and so on. And people were just caught up in that. Top Gun came out. Close Encounters had been out. It was a huge hit. And there were a lot of movies like that around. And like I say, it just kind of got into it. And there's been many, stories that start off, like you say, the Roswell template, UFO crashes, what happens next? Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it all did start from there.
And what do you think, is there any substance whatsoever to some of the stories we hear about, say, Area 51? I mean, in your research, is there anything you've come across which maybe leads you to think that, yes, there is something happening in Area 51 that is really noteworthy?
Well, if it was going to be anywhere, it would probably be there. See, I just don't believe that we live in a world where, for instance, the U.S. military or someone's military has reverse engineered UFOs. You hear that all the time, and people say, well, Velcro came from it and this came from that. First of all, you're demeaning the human beings who actually invented this stuff. And number two, we don't live in that world. If we were able to successfully reverse engineer a UFO, a flying saucer, something that came from somewhere else, all right, we'd be driving around, we'd be flying around in jetpacks now. We'd be, have anti-gravity shoes. We'd have all this stuff. We don't. We live in a world where we have brilliant people working for industry, for the military, for your institutions, universities. And they're cool, but they're not alien.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of this trajectory, Mack. Tell people where they can find out more about you and the various projects that you're involved in, and also where they can pick up copies of your many books.
Well, the best place to get the books, just definitely go on Amazon.com. The publisher doesn't really want to just push them, but it's the easiest place to go. Amazon.com, just type in Mack Maloney and you'll see them all. And we also have a weekly radio show and podcast called Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. And we are on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on the SiriusXM app. We're on about 22 different platforms. We have a lot of fun doing it. Very high energy show. And those two places are, you can see what I'm up to for sure.
Mack, for now, thank you so much for coming on Things Visible and Invisible.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Things Visible and Invisible. We're dedicated to uncovering phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality, from ancient enigmas and paranormal encounters to scientific anomalies and forgotten histories. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysterious and unexplained, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell to stay updated on future explorations. Have a personal experience or story that aligns with our investigations? We'd love to hear from you. Visit our website at tvi.show and reach out through our contact form. While we can't feature every submission, we review them all, and your story might be featured in an upcoming episode. To support our continued investigations, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter or channel member. Your contributions make these explorations possible and give you access to exclusive content, early releases, and monthly behind-the-scenes discussions with our team. Don't forget to check out our merch store. We've got everything from TVI-branded t-shirts and hoodies to stickers and coffee mugs, perfect for showing your support while keeping the mysteries close. Thank you for watching. and we'll see you next time as we continue to explore the things visible and invisible.